This is Folktale. I'm Eustace the Monk, checking out Folktale. What is Folktale? Well, at the moment it's mostly an RTS medieval village builder with a few RPG elements thrown in. The plan is to have a full-blown sandbox village manager with NPC factions and heroes that can be recruited and quests to be accomplished. You start off the game with a supply wagon that you plunk down wherever you want to start off on the map. And once you do, it looks kind of like a pile of garbage, actually. It's basically a heterogeneous pile of logs and boards. And I'm sure all the great cities of the world started with a trash heap in the city center. Rome, Paris, London, New York, everyone had a bunch of junk stacked up to start off the city. I'm sure of it. Anyhow, the supply wagon pretty much acts as your initial resource storage. You start with 5 peasants, who can do any job, but they suck at every job, but are the only ones who can build. So you want to train them to do specific tasks. Luckily, the game won't let you train your last peasant, so you can always build another house to house more peasants. More on that a little bit later. You build buildings, essentially, to train your peasants in. Woodcutters' huts trains woodcutters, forges train blacksmiths, that sort of thing. Train up peasants and start collecting resources, build more buildings. It's all very basic to standard RTS building games right now. One of the basic concepts of Folktale is that your people have a set of basic needs that need to be met, and you're basically building up your village to meet those needs. Initially, the ones you have to worry about are carbohydrates and warmth. People need houses and firewood to provide for their warmth. They won't just build a campfire in the middle of town for some reason. Initially, that was one of the things I was having trouble with.
Why are my people, not having warmth?
They have to have a house, and then they grab the firewood and bring it into the house. Initially, they pick berries on these little bushes and shrubberies until you can build a bakery or get hunters bringing meat and that kind of thing. When you need more people, just build a house, and new immigrants will slowly come and fill it. The more people you have, of course, the more food-growing infrastructure you'll need, but the more people you'll have to gather the food. So it's kind of a trade-off. It's very typical, but it's really a fun builder at this point. I'm really enjoying the game. There's no human enemies on the map, but it's filled with giant spiders and kobolds and orcs and angry bears, and basically there's all manner of goblinry that occasionally attack your villagers. And your villagers are actually pretty decent about fighting them back, and they usually win if you can have them gang up on one creature. And any losses you experience are quickly replaced as immigrants trickle in to fill any vacancies. Even vacancies that are caused by people being murdered by monsters, which is kind of hilarious when you think about it. Where these people live is so bad that as soon as they know that there's a free bed in your settlement, they'll jump right on the next boat. So like getting bit by a giant monster or stabbed by a goblin is better than wherever they're from. There's that. The villagers seem pretty fungible at this point, and well, that's because they are. It's tough to care about each one of them individually because they're very easily replaced by someone else who does their job just about as well as they do, and while they do look somewhat different, have different voices, I'm not sure if I can really bring myself to care. There is a crafting system in the game right now. You can make armor, weapons, tools, and items for your people, help them do their jobs better, or protect them in fights, that sort of thing. First, you research the items in the appropriate building, and then you'll learn the recipe, and you can craft the item as long as you have the materials available. You can also scrounge fallen objects from creatures. I've grabbed some armor from goblins I've killed, and I'm giving it to my hunter here because hunters tend to get killed a lot. They're out in the outskirts of your village, and they're the first to encounter angry bears or giant spiders and that sort of thing. The direction that this game is going is absolutely phenomenal. I'm really looking forward to future updates. First of all, each villager is going to be able to level up, and you'll be able to give them tools and such to do their jobs better. So presumably, it's going to hurt a lot worse when you lose your master baker to a random goblin attack, because the replacement won't be as good as baking as the old one was. Right now, they're just all there's a percentage of ways that they do their job best, but I haven't really noticed any big difference, to be honest. There will be NPC factions as well, 2 for each biome that offer different missions. This is the grasslands biome that I'm playing on now. And doing missions from one faction will alienate the other faction. For example, these grasslands are going to be home to the Withering Dead and the Glade Folk. Withering Dead are kind of like zombie people, and the Glade Folk are basically just little fairies. If you do missions for the Glade Folk, the Withering Dead are going to get pissed, and then they're going to tell you to pound it right up your ass, and you're in league with the Bleeding Fairies, and we don't like them. And that's pretty much what the Glade Folk are. They're just little fairies that squat in the flowers, and they bite your fingers if you try and pet them. I mean, what do you expect fairies to do? There will be heroes, both faction-based and neutral, and once you get into the good graces of one of the factions, you'll be able to recruit their heroes and that sort of thing. There's already a neutral hero in the game. He's a tank named Sir Gregory. At least they call him a tank, but he seems pretty much like an all-around badass. Once I recruited him, my life got a lot easier. And they've added all of his abilities at the moment that you can just access right away, but in the final version, you'll gain them as he levels up. And I'm not sure, I'm wondering if regular villagers will have similar abilities as they level, like a baker will have XYZ or whatever, and you'll get them as the baker levels up. The map is fairly large, but there's a planned hero party system where you can adventure to other locations. And the game is also being developed with what appears to be a very robust scenario and map creator. So I'm thinking that the community is going to be able to expand the replayability of this game tremendously after release, because they'll be able to be making new locations for you to go and explore, new dungeons to go pillage and that kind of thing, and then return to the village that you're building with loot or experience or goodies or whatever. And I'm pretty excited by this game, if you couldn't tell already. I'm really looking forward to see which direction it goes, seeing its development. I like the direction it's going in. I just can't emphasize that enough. The artwork and animations are really fantastic. You can look at this. You can zoom all the way in to see each of the villagers doing their tasks if you want, for whatever reason. And that's not some pre-rendered shit like what we're used to seeing in game trailers. This is gameplay graphic. I'm playing this game right now while it's really top-notch. I really enjoy this art style a lot. I'm having a lot of fun playing this game, to be honest. It's a pretty good game right now, and they're adding a lot to it. Updates are about once every 3 or 4 months, but each update is fairly robust. If you like the idea of a medieval village building game, then get this one right away. And one thing I really like about it is it strikes a nice balance between managing your people and managing the big picture without having to stop the building and planning to make sure everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing. You have to do a little bit of micromanagement, but not a whole lot, and that's what I really like about it. And since it's pretty much man versus nature at this point, there's no organized antagonist taking over the map, so it'll give you a chance to build up your village however you want, if that's what you'd rather concentrate on. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the creatures spread out over the map if you leave them be. It's a pretty interesting system that the game uses. There's monster dens or nests that spawn monsters that will wander around the map and attack your village if they get close enough. Leave the dens alone for long enough and it'll spawn a settler creature that will go to a new location and create a new monster den, which will in turn spawn more creatures. So initially in the game, the monsters don't pose too much of a threat to the village, but you'll eventually want to go out and take the fight to them. In my opinion, it really strikes a good balance between building and planning the village and fighting and exploring. This is where a whole lot of games like this fall apart. There's either no threat and it's boring, or you're always fighting and never doing any of the building. You're just frantically scrolling back over to the village to spawn more reinforcements and then running back over to the constant battles that are going on. In summary, I'd recommend that if you like building games like this, you pick it up right now. I'm having fun with it, and I think you will as well if you like games like this, so go for it.